Hi, everybody. Let's put this up here. 1,092 days since Richard vanished from the barracks there at Fort Bliss in El Paso, Texas. Let's see if we're on. Let's see if we're on Facebook. And here we are. Make sure that everyone can hear me and see me. Yep. Okay. Turn this down. Sure that everyone can hear. Yep. Okay. So now I can see any comments. All right. So 1,092 days. Thank you so much. A little bit of a sad day. A dear friend passed away, and I'm thinking about him. Uh, Life is really precious, y'all. And one of the things that uh, has been so appalling to us, Team Find Richard Halliday, during these 3 years, during this time looking for Richard, is that these young people are fodder for the command, for the leadership, for our government. They don't care about them. And unless they have certain connections or they're going along with their Vanity Fair, they really don't care about them. And the attitude has been developed in our culture that if you know if you don't have it, I don't know, a certain social atmosphere or certain social ability at the age of 18 or whatever, you are disposable. You are just disposable to them. And this has been so appalling to us, because when you are a young adult like this, and this is why so many families, um, and so many young people, because they know it themselves, epistemological self consciousness, they know it themselves that they need to be mentored still, that they need to be trained, that they want to be part of an esprit de corps, part of um, an army of one, of a country. And they need that training and they know it. And the families also know it. And that's why we have a volunteer military, is because throughout, I mean, I know from my dad, I know from my husband, I know from my father-in-law, I know from so many people that I've met. My husband served 30 years. For most of that time I was beside him. um, People join because they want a mentor. They want to belong. They want to be trained. And the clear picture that we're getting, and I think this is why the recruiting is so low. Thank you so much for coming on, Danielle. Um, is because people say, don't join the military. You're not going to get mentoring. You're just going to be fodder. You're not going to get the training. You're not going to get the training. You're not going to get the mentoring. You're not going to be part of a larger esprit de corps. You're not going to service your country. You're going to service some foreign and domestic enemy for a business plan instead of for the defense of our Constitution, the land, and the people. You're not going to be able to be proud and excited and aspire to what you're doing. And I think that's why the recruiting is so low. And it has been appalling, the response at the very beginning, uh, when they just started this, oh, we'll bring you back in, but we're going to do a smear campaign on your son. Are you ready? Are you ready to hear about your son? We're going to do a smear. They didn't say we're going to do a smear campaign, but that's exactly what they did. They launched a smear campaign on Richard. And why did they do that? Because they already had his remains, you see. They already were in cover up mode. They were like, they they already had an operational plan to protect um, even some lower ranking, because the karma, the connections would swing upward to the higher ranks, and then the higher ranks being absolutely responsible, including General McConville, absolutely responsible for this mess, and General Mealy, of course, and General Garrett. Those three generals should absolutely not get another dime from us. Not get another dime. And they should be arrested. And they should be tried in a court of law. And they should be punished for what they have done. 100%. These are criminals. These are the worst type of criminals because they wear our uniform and they wear our shiny stars, and they have taken everything that we have given them, all of our gratitude, all of our trust, and they've used it badly. They've used it as weapons against us as a country. These are the worst type of criminals. You know, of course, we have been retaliated against over and over and over again with these junior NCOs, or, you know, the lower, the ones that aren't totally responsible, even though they're responsible. But we're talking about the Army here. We're not talking about the civilian world. And so these Anthony Swaffords, let's say that, or Marlon Soto's and Command Sergeant Major Jakovitz. I mean, that's a high rank for an NCO. The Jay Paulins, the Dallas Hart. Yeah, I mean, he's suspected of murdering Richard. Jay Paulin is suspected of murdering Richard. Okay? The last person to have seen Richard is connected with them. The hiding and getting rid of the dissemination, getting rid of Richard's remains and everything, you know, this group, um, with the blessing of Clem Coward, right? I mean, that's what we're being told. He greenlit it. He gets the other people to do the dirty work. Because this is financial fraud. This is financial crimes being committed here, right? This is child trafficking being committed here. This is narcotics sales being committed here. This is an officer engaged in incest. This is the leaking of files. There's so much wrong. And you know, the upper echelon, they don't have Dallas Hart's back. If they had Dallas Hart's back, they would have already arrested him, right? Maybe they did already. Maybe he's out on bond. I don't know. They would have already arrested Jay Paulin. They would already get to the bottom of this. But you see, they would be arrested also, and they were being held accountable during that time, and that's what scared them, is because of Vanessa. They were being held accountable. And so, the fodder for their mess. Because, see, a Dallas Hart couldn't happen if you had a four-star general doing his duty. A Jay Paulin, I mean, really not at the level that they're doing it. It's a mess. We have so many suicides, so many brutal murders, so many rapes, so much PTSD. It just could not happen with 44 four-star generals and admirals doing their duty. It couldn't happen. They could, because this is not the civilian world, okay? This is the military world. They have extra tools that the civilian world doesn't have. They have extra monies that the civilian world doesn't have. Matter of fact, they have bottomless purses. And yet our equipment is faulty. Our soldiers do not have esprit de corps. There's criminal syndicates and gangs and these sex cults all over. The military is not a place for sex cults. Because then you have compromise, you see. You have conflicts of interest. You have everybody having affairs and maybe even having children. And you have hard feelings. You have, it just gets so messy. The military is no place for sex cults. Okay? They should be so strict with that. And there should be absolutely no co-ed barracks. No mingling, no. Look, we have questions about the very chief of security of Fort Bliss. Okay, we have questions about Major General Clem Coward. We have questions at the highest levels with these sex cults, the sexual activities at the highest levels, because they allowed the child porn. They allowed the porn, right? They allowed these special servers so that they can airdrop the porn. I mean, what kind of leadership is that? So the whole military is 17 to 25 of these young soldiers. I mean, a big bulk of them are in this young. I mean, most of our military is 45 years and younger. But our young soldiers are full of vim and vigor. You don't push them sexually. They don't need to be pushed sexually. But you need to guide them morally so that they can be strong. You don't push them into raping, into sex cults, into pedophilia. You're pushing them into pedophilia? You're grooming them into these doggy cults? No wonder. It's, how can we have an efficient military with no morals? That's why historically we have gone to war with a guide on, and that guide on always meant under God. We are a nation under God. That's what that meant. Our stars and stripes means one nation under God. Because without being moral, without having morality, without standing for a moral country, And, these sex cult people, they want us to accept that raping children is moral. They want to redefine morality in their own terms. It's not my terms. What's moral or not, what God says, is not my terms. Right? It's God's terms. And absolutely no way are you allowed to rape. Be it anybody and anything. That means bestiality, because, we're having a bestiality problem too. So it's like sex cult after sex cult after sex cult. And, these are the same people that said, you better wear your mask and take your Cobra strike, right? I mean, it's like, wait a minute. What makes people sick? What makes people weak? And that's why I have Theodora behind me. Let me see it. I have her behind me. Let's see. If you can see it, I have the flags behind me too. Because her and Justinian got it right. And their country, because of the foundation, Byzantium, way over 1,000 years it lasted. Okay, so we're not even at 300 years yet for the United States. And, they lasted way over 1,000 years before the breakdown. And what was the breakdown? The breakdown was rape. Widespread rape. When you read the accounts of what was going on, at the end, it was just chaos. And so Richard standing up for the children and against the financial crimes being committed, the sale of equipment, the sale of weapons, the sale of drugs, the sale of ammunition, the sale of child pornography, and the child sex trafficking. You can just say child trafficking. You can say human trafficking, which is mostly all women. All of those funds, that all needs to be, warrants need to be issued for that. Because you can then, you follow the money, you follow the trail, you see what toes Richard was stepping on. But, this is why I was told in my vile, vulgar messages, we judged him. We already judged him. Because I would say, look, just find him and then you can judge him. And they would say, we already judged him. And I'd be like, really? Who judged him? We judged him? That means there was a group. 2? We judged him? Whose toes was he stepping on in this illegal activity? And we absolutely know that there is illegal activity. We absolutely know that. Because we've had soldiers already arrested for prostituting out a 14-year-old girl in the barracks. We've had soldiers and Marines arrested for human trafficking. We've had soldiers, service members arrested for dealing drugs, brutally murdering a whistleblower. We've had soldiers raping. We have through the Navy, um, where the whole sex thing. The Do not be a woman and join the Navy, okay? They don't treat you too well. They like to prostitute you out or rape you. That's what I'm hearing. Um, I think the Navy right now, or the Marines, first time that it doesn't have a designated leader right now. I mean, something crazy is happening in our military, which makes us so vulnerable to our enemies. And yet, we're still fighting these foreign wars instead of getting our act together here at home. So, I'm going to tell you a little bit. That was the groundwork for a little bit of what I have found in the research that we have done, and also the leads that we are getting, um, about the security officer, the chief of security for Fort Bliss and Marlon Soto, what problems that they were facing when Richard went missing, and they didn't really want to report it, and they found his remains. And y'all, I'm getting information that they found his car. Now, that is shocking because we received like an anonymous tip that Richard had turned in his car. Um, and we trusted that tip, but we're thinking that was a setup now, because the information that we're getting in is that the chain of custody for Richard's belongings was all messed up, and they have stuff. That's why we didn't really get important things from him, like his phone. And I know that he told us that he left his phone at the washateria, or and someone took. That's what he told us. But I'm thinking something more happened. But he still went and got a phone. He still had phones. And why don't we have them? And, so much has happened because of the COVID, because of what happened with my dad, because of our moving, everything. See, this is how they get away with it. You trust them because it's their job as criminal investigators, as the military, to, they have the responsibility to take care of your loved one. And you trust them to use all the tools that you're paying for them to have to take care of it, because I can't even imagine if you're working full-time, 2 full-time jobs, and you have younger kids and everything. There's no way that you could put aside huge portions of your life to investigate the disappearance of your son or daughter. And I got like some screenshots saying, oh, the mother of Richard favored the daughters or something like this. And I'm like, really? I mean, they probably would be like, really? My mom has just been every night, a lot of that times twice a day, and going, fighting for Richard. Um, it doesn't make sense. No, no. Um, I tell you, these people, and they're little people. They're just little people. The ones that really have hurt us the most is General McConville, is General Garrett, is Command Sergeant Major Jackovitz, is Lieutenant General Sean Bernabe and Lieutenant General Donna Martin, and the Secretary of the Army, and Veronica Escobar, and um, Bill, what's the guy's name? The DA there? Bill Hicks, and Jaime Esparza, the AG. These are the people that really, really have been cruel, very cruel. The IG, the Department of Justice IG, and um, because we submitted that they would have extra oversight over this case, especially because of what was happening with Vanessa Guillen, what happened with Caleb Smither, what happened with Enrique Roman Martinez, what happened with Austin Hawk, that we need some oversight because the CID, because the military clearly is not working properly, clearly has lost control. And they denied us. They denied. Those are the things that are much more damaging than these vile and vulgar people, right? The ones that brag that they control everything. Who has fooled them? They're being so used. Leilani Hart is so used. She, they're using her, and she's bragging she has control. They've totally destroyed her family. I mean, they're incestuous. They're raping children, 7-year-olds in her master bedroom. I mean, what kind of family life has she led? I mean, it's really hard for me to add more damage to that, because how much more damage? I mean, her son is suspected of murdering my son. So, you're just think of this scenario. Here he is, being a victim as a child, I'm sure. He was groomed. All porn is child sex trafficking, right? So you're into this porn, you've been trafficked, you've been groomed, you've been assaulted as a child, you're getting into this world, this sex cult, and you're still being, maybe now you're willing because you've been groomed that way, but you're incestuous. And then that's not even enough. You got to go to the kids. You got to go to the kids and destroy more life. And then if someone calls you out and say, "Hey, you're sick. You're sick." Then you got to go murder them? I mean, I'm just saying that's a scenario. Or do you go rape them? I mean, how much damage? And this is Leilani Hart's family? Is this what she's reporting in her? It's not my report. This is not my report. This is her report to the CID that she thought was so important that it needed an extra stamp, right? So she went and had it notarized. She had her testimony, her confession. I mean, her whole family has been destroyed. And they messed with part of our family. They messed with Richard. And they murdered him. And we don't take lightly to that because we work really hard to keep our family healthy. But see, it's this sick. And I mean, I'm not saying sick in a way like, ooh, gross, even though it is gross. I'm saying sick, which means polluted. The terrain has been polluted. The family has been polluted. And I remember talking to Dallas Hart, and he's like, yeah, well, my dad has 2 girlfriends. Wait a minute, I thought that they were still married. Oh, yeah, well, but they've been separated a long time. They've been in this divorce for, I don't care. They're still married. So it's normalized to commit adultery with young girlfriends or whatever. It's like that's nothing compared to the child rape. So let's normalize it. You see the abyss that this sickness is putting us into? And then you have this group that has to surround them and protect them because they're part of it too. They're part of it too. They have mental illnesses. They told me they had mental illnesses. Okay? I don't want to name which ones, but quite a few people in this group that befriended us at the beginning who were really enemies, right? They were like, Trojan horses. Just come on in to find Richard Halliday, see what's going on, try to direct the narrative, but when we can't do it, then we will turn. So many of them. That's exactly, I don't think any of them said, hey, we hate you, mama, at the beginning. We hate you. We're going to work against you. We don't want you to find Richard. Not one of them was honest like that. Not one of them. They all came in, oh, you're my mama. I just love Richard. I just love Richard. I just love you. And oh, I'm going to say prayer. I'm going to say prayers for you. Or, oh, can we do some card readings? Or can we do this? That's how they come in. And they're up to no good. They're not honest. And then they tell you, oh yeah, I'm mentally ill. I'm like, okay, I'm going to pray for you. I mean, I remember one post on Marketplace that her daughter got raped, and I'm like, we need to pray for this daughter. What? How dare you pray for my daughter? What do you mean? What do you mean? I mean, this is the reaction. And I can give you stories of my discussions with Marlon Soto that would make the hair on your arms just raise up on the back of your necks, and you're like, what? And this is the head of CID there at Fort Bliss. And absolutely, I knew that this investigation, we knew that this investigation was botched the minute they said to us, "Do you want to hear about your son?" The minute they said that, we knew it was botched. And we just gave them chances after chances. And, but we knew something stunk. And now we know that they were in cover up mode. They fudged papers. And we absolutely know they fudged papers because we have proof with Richard's archive. We have proof with Richard's belongings that they tampered with his things, his personal, that they did not collect the items properly. They did not do a proper inventory. They botched all of his paperwork when it came to the GOMAR, to the Field Grade Article 15, to the chaptering. They botched everything. They had to change their mind. They botched his designations, his classifications. They botched that. Because what do you call a soldier that you're trying to call him missing, but you have his remains? I mean, this is the thing. Legally, they had to, when I look at all the information and you put it all together, when Rob and I look at all the timelines and all the information, what it looks like is panic. It all fits together, but it's all panic. And they were panicking. And when you panic and you do things illegally and unjust, you make mistakes. And they made a lot of mistakes. And I'm so sorry. I really am. Because people go, "Why are you sorry?" Because you understand that this all harms our country. This harms other soldiers. It harms our relationships with other countries. You don't think Mexico knows what's happening when they participated in this whole case with just allowing the FBI to go and hunt for Richard's remains in Mexico? I mean, you don't think that the United States had to relate to them that they were sending in FBI agents to look for a soldier in uniform that was murdered? Maybe just parts of him. He was dismembered by his own unit because our military is so corrupt. They were dealing with sex cult issues, with raping children and selling arms and drugs and whatnot. I mean, how can you be happy about any of that or mad about any of that? It's, for me, I'm sad. I'm so sad. You have these young people with young children that all admit that they have mental problems. They all admit it. It's like a badge of honor. "Oh, don't you know? I have this and I'm on this and this medication." It's like it's a badge of honor. And I'm sad about that because they should not be in their 20s and 30s in the United States in mental turmoil with little children and have to take drugs to level themselves out. So, you know, I just want you to keep that in mind when they're coming after me. Why they're coming after me is because they're not mentally stable. They're not mentally right. And they weren't mentally right with Richard either. And some of them were. I think, David Park has a big I don't mention him too often, but let me tell you, he has a big part to play in this. He had a different part um, that we've been collecting information on, and the same thing with Lieutenant Colonel Roddick, and of course Major General Clem Coward. That's been our focus. Really, the focus is the higher ranking. What did General McConville know when, and why did he do what he did? Why did he stage the task force? Why did he launch the smear campaign? He allowed all that to happen. Why did he make Sean Bernabe uh um what do you call that? They because that Sean Bernabe arrived there just prior to us getting there. All of that was just, that's why they didn't invite us. That's why they wouldn't even invite us to El Paso, and Jay Pollan was trying to talk us out of it, and he never met us. Why didn't he meet us? Because he's involved in it. He's implicated in the murder of our son. And part of the whole conversation that they colluded and conspired. Absolutely, um, we have so many screenshots. We have so many leads. They wanted to try to make Richard a suicide. And so they orchestrated with the key witnesses, or the key perpetrators. They manipulated the narrative, which is illegal. And that means, in order to manipulate the narrative, you have to get the JAG on board, and you have to get the chief of security of Fort Bliss on board. You have to get the head of CID. The CID is a mess. Okay? That's a mess. So Marlon Soto was just, he was just, trying to keep afloat. Personally, he could care less about Richard. This was all about the mess he had within his office. And Jay Pollan and Leilani Hart and others had a conflict of interest with CID. And a lot of others, yeah. They were a little kind of groupie there, a little groupie there, up to no good. And it was pretty profitable. I don't understand why the other soldiers, this is what I don't get. Why do the other soldiers allow themselves to be so compromised? Right? These young soldiers. So travel records were absolutely manipulated. Phone the apps, the records of them manipulated. Witnesses tampered with. Witnesses ignored. Leads not being followed. Surveillance videos. We have reports of surveillance videos, lots of them. This is because we have inside knowledge now. Evidence was kept from being from us. Financial records are very important in this because there's more to it than even just making money off of the drugs and porn and weapons and ammunition and equipment and uh, child trafficking or whatever. There's more to it. Okay. So it's interesting that JAG is so afraid. They're so afraid to even have a person that was part of the cover up that walks in and says, I want to make a statement now. I want to say that there's discrepancies now. I want to clear this up a little bit. So he's putting his own life online. He knows it. Because this bus open and, he's implicated. But if he busts it open and he's implicated, but he's doing the right thing, I think he needs to be held accountable, right? But, the real judge is what matters, what God thinks of him. So, yeah. There was absolutely a delayed response, which is an indication of cover up. And absolutely the CID with the chief of security of Fort Bliss collaborated together. They have to anyway. And they absolutely messed with the witnesses because I know that with Boleyn. They messed with her. They controlled it. It was a three-way. It's not like, oh yeah, I'll give you Boleyn's phone number. You can talk. And also at the beginning, talking to the members, they controlled that. It was very interesting. So we need the surveillance footage that they lied to us about. Oh yeah, it just overwrote. We don't have anything. We don't have anything. And I'm like, okay. And then they come back, oh yeah, we have some. So they had to legally, everything was a panic. They had to legally juggle because it's coming out. It's come out. We have the autopsy numbers that they won't, oh my God. We have Ortiz, right? Dr. What is it? Raskin. Dr. Raskin. And then another one that I haven't released yet. They should call. Yay or nay? Where is the official paper? I don't even want the call. People go, oh, why don't you call them? No. We need an official paper sent to us by the command, by the CID, by, who's in charge of this? Because, just that I'm asking that question is a crime, because they should be contacting us and keeping us informed all the time. So, And also, what we're getting in is a political interference. Absolutely, there was political interference with this whole thing. And there's a lot of missing documents. We know that. And they also mishandled the crime scene. I mean, we have CID Quantico hasn't even visited the crime scene. They told us they were going to go down there. She was going to get on a plane and go down. They could talk to our prime witness when they went down, because they had never even heard of him, because the file got scrubbed. And then they can get behind the witnesses and the testimonies and the false alibis, because we absolutely know there's false alibis. It's if you think of it, you'll go, oh yeah, that was a false alibi. Yep. Oh yeah, that was a false alibi. Yep. And there's more. And of course, they should be, we should have had our summary a long time ago, but they cannot resolve the conflicts of interest. But that's happening behind the scenes a little bit. We received some communication, and we're thinking about it. Thinking about this communication and thinking how to respond. It's so interesting because they have a team of lawyers and they weaponize themselves against us. And they're supposed to be serving us. They're supposed to be, yeah. So, let's see. What does Danielle have to say? Give us Richard. Yes, give us Richard's remains. It's very sad. I think a lot of them take medication sometimes to use it as an excuse to act in a crime. Yeah, I don't know. It was just so strange to me that that they would tell me that they were mentally ill. They probably are fearing for their life, in my opinion. I think so. Tomorrow is 3 years since Richard's disappearance. Yep, 3 years. So I put on a video. Let's play that video. Let's see if I can get to it. Let's see. Oh, I don't want to do that. Let's see. How can I do this?
You are not hidden. There's never been a moment that you were forgotten. You are not hopeless.
He was very honest.
You have been broken. Your innocence stolen.
He was a very focused and committed child. And well-mannered kid.
Underneath your breath, I hear your SOS, your SOS. I will send out an army to find you in the middle of the darkest night. It's there's no distance that cannot be covered over and over. You're not defenseless. I'll be your shelter, I'll be your armor. I hear you whisper underneath your breath. I hear your SOS, your SOS. I will send out an army to find you in the middle of the darkest night. It's true, I will rescue you, and I will never stop marching to reach you in the middle of the hardest fight. It's true, I will rescue you. I hear you whisper underneath your breath. I hear you whisper you have nothing left. I will send out an army to find you in the middle of the darkest night. It's true, I will rescue you, and I will never stop marching to reach you in the middle of the hardest fight. It's true, I will rescue you.
Came to visit us during leave.
Fight,
That
it's
family
true,
picture.
I will rescue
Went to Gasparilla Island, and it was hot there, but we had a great time. Yeah. So
I don't know about you guys, but I am gonna go cool off.
I always have to recover a little bit after watching that. They messed with our family, and we don't want that to happen to anyone else. And the likes of Leilani Hart that don't think it's any problem to have an affair, to have a conflict of interest, to mess with the CID, doesn't think, to mess with high-ranking officials. No respect for the country. No respect for the future. Why do I say that? Because you create these criminal syndicates, you create this ruined, just ruined family. And I put James Hart in that too. Absolutely. He's more accountable than she is for this ruin. And to take advantage of children, to take advantage of women, to take advantage of his own children. To take advantage of Fort Bliss. That kind of sickness and pollution taints then our volunteer sons and daughters that come in there. And they don't have to be perfect. They don't have to be perfect families either. We're talking about $1 trillion funded military, okay? And people go, oh, it's not $1 trillion yet. Wait a minute. They had 5 audits with trillions of dollars missing, okay? So the 900 billion or whatever, 900 something billion, that's just what they tell us. There's all kinds of other monies And we've given them everything. And they have ran our sons and daughters into a chaotic situation where they're just trying to make it. They're not being trained and feeling proud and wanting to give back. They're just trying to survive, and then they enter the VA, and then they have the likes of Jake Jakovitz working for the VA. And then people go, oh, the VA, it's terrible. You got all these sick soldiers because of what Leilani Hart and James Hart has done with their family and taken advantage of their time there in El Paso to squirm their way and create these webs of destruction, really, just destruction. And I want to put Jay Paulin in that, David Hart in that. David Park, Roddick. Of course, McConville could have straightened it all out, but they pick and choose who they're going to put places. Because let me tell you what, this Leilani Hart knows, and James Hart, they know, they have a long-standing relationship with the chief of security of Fort Bliss. They have a long relationship with Tavita Nusa and those inside of that little teeny CID office. They have a long relationship with Major General Clem Coward. So this pollution, this ruined family, has their way in. And Richard's going to the CPS, and they're not doing anything about it. And Richard goes to the CID, and he's like, wow, I'm getting retaliated against. I've become the enemy because I want to protect the children. But guess what? The Sound of Freedom, the greatest line in the Sound of Freedom is, God's children are not for sale. God's children are not for sale. This is a moral stand. And Richard took a moral stand. He did something remarkable. Absolutely remarkable. Where others do not tread to take a moral stand, he took one. Where he depended on the seasoned warfighter to be his mentor, he becomes the mentor. He did something amazing. And so for, this 3-year anniversary, yes, people are going to tell me, but he paid the ultimate price. Yes. That's it. But he was not going to participate with compounding the pollution, compounding the child porn, compounding the child trafficking, compounding the illegal narcotics trafficking, compounding the weapons smuggling, compounding the equipment sales, illegal equipment sales, and other financial dealings, he wasn't going to do it. So thank you everyone for coming on, and charge everyone involved to be held to the highest punishment. Oh yeah. Yeah. They need to face their faults and release Richard Halliday's remains to his family and give Richard a proper burial. 100%. That's what we want. And I told that to Jake Jakovitz when he. Okay, so Delira sent me her presentation to the VA. And she said, watch this before they take it down, right? And I copied and pasted that whole post right there on watch this before they take it down. I don't know if they're going to take it down. We're being censored left and right. I don't know. But he says, we'll never take this down. Okay, whatever. Whatever. Give me Richard's remains. Because absolutely, Command Sergeant Major Jakovitz, shaking. See, he had a conscience. And instead of reassuring us that they're not going to take it down, why doesn't he get taller and bigger and give us Richard's remains? Why doesn't he break this open? Because he knows, y'all. He knows. He knows the pollution that was there. He knows what they did to Richard. And we want our son's remains. And he needs to do the right thing. Because as rotten as he is, and he's so rotten. Okay, because he said, I didn't even know I had a missing soldier. And he didn't tell us that our son was a whistleblower. He absolutely knew that. He was absolutely colluding with Jay Paulin, because I got the screenshots to prove it. So they were colluding. They were, why didn't he tell me, hey, Jay Paulin needs to come? Why was Jay Paulin trying to direct the Command Sergeant Major around? Because that's what was happening. If Command Sergeant Major Jakovitz wanted to call, he would have called us. I don't need Jay Paulin to give me all Jakovitz's private information and tell me to call him. They need to be calling us. They need to be writing us. And not this squirmy stuff like, tell us about Richard. No, you know about Richard. I don't have to tell you about Richard. Where is Richard? I'm ready to hear about Richard. Tell me. All of that charm school stuff, when they weren't telling us the meat, they needed to tell us that Richard was missing. They needed to tell us that Richard was a whistleblower. They needed to tell us that they found Richard's remains. They needed to tell us that he was dismembered and they found his parts in different places. They needed to tell us that they had suspects, and that it was bad. That we even have a report, and they need to clarify this or not, because we have on the 6th of August, a certain person confessed to the murder of Richard. I mean, there's a confession out there. So, go out there and do some research. Go ask. Go do some research. Ask. Hey, what happened on August 6, 2020 in Richard Halliday's case? I mean, you might even be able to ask Alexa. Alexa might be able to tell you. I don't know if any of you have Alexa, but go ahead and ask Alexa, because Alexa is more forthright than Command Sergeant Major Jakovitz. that's keep asking. Keep asking. It gets very interesting. All right, everyone. In charge, everyone. Okay. So this is we're headed into 3 years, and I'm not allowed to get emotional, y'all. I've told that to the kids. I'm not allowed to get emotional. We've got to pace ourselves, and we've got to get through this. And we have to get accountability in order to get Richard's remains, because they're just they want to get away with this. They want to get away with it. And they're using what we have given them to manipulate. They manipulate what we have given them to cover up their crimes. And that's why I say General McConville and General Garrett and Lieutenant, even though General Garrett is retired now, but all of these generals in this thing, Sean Bernabe, and they don't need to get a dime. They need to be stripped, y'all. We need to send a very loud message that they cannot take our goodwill and our funding and our support, take all of that and weaponize it against us and get away with it, and weaponize it against our children and get away with it. So against our country. We definitely need we need somebody that has some backbone, moral backbone. And that sees, that sees into the future and wants something good and wants something great. That's what we need. Someone that's going to fight to lay down the foundation for the future, like Justinian, like Theodora. She saw it. She had lived in that pollution. She didn't want any part of it, and she didn't want the future to have any part of it. So, and isn't that, I'm always amazed. I'm always amazed at how, for just a time as this, there's so many things that I learned just for the time of this to take the stand. And Rob and I are very grateful that very grateful. We don't want any other family to go through this. And so that we can pace ourselves and see for ourselves these the enemy in front of us. And have we been taken advantage of? Yeah. Oh, yeah. And we knew we were taken advantage of. We knew we were being taken advantage of. But you see, the fight is not in violence. It's not in cussing someone out. It's not being confrontational and saying, you're just an FBI informant. You're just trying to control the narrative and lead us to different places in that. No, this is a spiritual battle. And not by might, not by power, but by my spirit, says the Lord. And so you go along, you're very patient, and I can tell you right now, Richard is not alive in Mexico. Okay? I can tell you that right now. So, um, we're very grateful that we could just keep going and keep going and keep going until the politics kinds of crumbles, until the whole COVID thing crumbles. Because that's still going on. It's pretty much they they still want to bring it up, and it's like, are you kidding me? You still want to manipulate the narrative of it? It's we need a reality check. And the reality check is that we have to be sure footed and stay on that right path morally so that everything else is going to crumble around you and you'll be the last one standing. This is, God shake, 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 shakes that everything just falls apart. And you're like, oh, okay, victory, victory. So that's why we're grateful that we can take the stand. So say a prayer for those that have lost loved ones, dear ones, and let's stand firm and move forward and get this information out. I'll be releasing with Rob and I. We'll be releasing a bunch of findings very soon, and I don't know if they're going to answer our questions. I don't know because it implicates them. Are you guilty of of hiding the remains of Richard Halliday? It implicates them. And it's really, how do you forgive something like that? Anyway, okay. God bless you, and I will be back tomorrow, God willing. And thank you for coming on, and we love you.